said in our conversation before, like I just have a lot of like personal questions for you. Not personal, I'm sorry, business questions, but I want to know them for myself. Like, but I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be some things that'll help. Some of the people that I follow, some of the people that are interested in being speakers. And so, yeah, I just want to do that. I guess I'll formally introduce you. Courtney Stanley is
Woohoo.
recognized globally as an award-winning change maker, keynote speaker, and event MC, and acclaimed creator of the women-inspired podcast Dare to Interrupt. I'm just excited that she's taking some time out of her schedule, out of her life, to chat with me a bit. Courtney, how you feeling? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing pretty well. I think this past year and even this week has been a super crazy roller coaster, but I'm pretty good. I'm happy to be here. So thanks for having me on.
For sure. So, whenever if I interview somebody, my podcast, primarily Speaker Marketing Made Simple, is just me sharing marketing tips for speakers. Is usually just me talking. But whenever I interview people, I love to give backstories. I love to say, hey, I met this person back in 2010 when I could barely afford to pay for travel to an event, all that good stuff. But you and I actually became acquainted. I did an interview with a mutual, I guess, colleague, friend, and she mentioned you. And I was like, that name sounds familiar. It sounds familiar. Tell me more. And then she started just talking about, oh, she puts on these great events. Oh, she's really, you've never heard of her. And then I go to my Instagram and I'm like, what's her Instagram? It's like Courtney on Stage. And I'm like, I follow her. I
I
already
love
follow her.
that.
I
I love
already follow
that.
her. So it's like I was a low-key fan already and didn't know that it was talking about the same people. So I'm interested to ask you this. So everybody that usually I interview,
Mhm.
most of them, like 99% of them, will say, oh, I didn't grow up and say I want to be a speaker, right?
Yeah.
They say other things. They say I wanted to be a fireman. I wanted to be, a stylist. I wanted, all these different things. And so when you said that you wanted to be a forensic scientist, you gotta tell me how we go from, yeah, mom, dad, grandma, auntie, I think I want to be a forensic scientist, to, yeah, I'm this dope speaker, MC, trailblazing past for women in my industry. How did that happen?
Yeah, it actually, when you asked me that question, the first thing that came to mind was fashion designer. I was like, I remember sketching as a kid, all these outfits. I was super into fashion. But I think the most serious role that I wanted to play when I was younger was a forensic scientist. So, what most people don't know about me actually is that I used to compete in a lot of science competitions. So, I was super nerdy and I loved science. And there's an organization called Science Olympiad. And I would compete in chemistry competitions, and forensics was one of the areas of science that I was really good at. And I loved building a case for who did what and looking at fibers and fingerprints and hairs and tire tracks. And like, it was super fun and super, super nerdy. And so I think that was the first time that I was like, this would be really cool to make this my job and try to solve mysteries and that kind of thing. And I actually ended up going into university pre-med. That was the track that I chose at first. And frankly speaking, it was just really hard. It was really hard. And at the time, I'd started to just be a little bit confused about what I wanted to do. And I saw all my friends having so much fun, and I was stuck in the dorm room studying chemistry. And I had a little bit, I don't even know if looking back, I can say that it was irresponsible, but in the moment, it was a little bit irresponsible. And I was like, I just want life to be a little bit easier right now. Totally played the short game. I heard about the hospitality and event management and tourism track. And so I decided to switch gears and go into that field and that sector. So I actually started out in the events world, and I was an event planner. I interned in Nashville at the Country Music Association, moved to Boston, worked at an events agency there, moved to Toronto, shout out to Drake, and worked there for a couple years, more in the PR marketing world. And this whole time that I was jumping and zigzagging and really trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because I had no idea. Try something, didn't like it, try something else. And I just kept kind of repeating that pattern. And along the way, that turned me into an accidental entrepreneur where I began side hustling and speaking and writing and coaching and podcasting and doing all this stuff. And most recently, I worked for a political nonprofit environmental organization. And I was doing more communications work there, event work there. And I just realized that I felt like working for somebody else had some really great things, like a steady paycheck, but it also had a lot of limitations. And I just began to get antsy and hungry to be in a position where nobody could hold me back. And really, I would be the only person that would stop me from achieving more and leaning into my potential more. So I decided to just take a huge leap of faith and turn all of those side hustles that I've been doing for years into a full-time career as a keynote speaker and as an event MC. So long story short, that's kind of where I came from and how I ended up where I am today.
That's amazing. And I love how you kind of charted us through that, right? Like you're a kid at these, science competitions, right? Like, isn't that gives you so much street cred right now, right?
I still have my little medals and my little trophies.
But that's amazing. And I think it's something with that. So so your first year in college, you were like, nah, I ain't doing this. Was it that time, the first year in college?
Yeah, it was
And then you
after,
switched?
yeah, after the first year of biomedical science courses, and I just wanted something that was more fun, frankly speaking. I wanted to enjoy my life. I wanted to do something where I'd be able to travel. I didn't want to go to school for 12 years. And so I just started listening to what other people were studying and really enjoying.
Got it. And so getting into hospitality, event management, you go into your career and you worked in Nashville, then you move to Boston. So I guess kind of take me through the timeline, because I think that's something that a lot of speakers struggle with, right? Like, oh, I want to be a speaker, Courtney. I want to be a speaker, Odell. Like, I should be making like 20,000 a month. I mean, a speech, because I've got a great story and I've got a great passion and all that stuff. But you don't even have any free events under your belt. So take me through that time frame, like years wise, when you were like, oh, as an event manager, I see other events, I see all these things going on. Hey, I could do that. And then how long did it take from that point to say, I'm gonna do this full time?
Yeah, so the first time that I really engaged in public speaking was back in 2011. So it's been about a decade since I first took the stage. And I spoke for free for a long time. I didn't speak because I wanted to build a career out of speaking. I spoke because I felt that I had knowledge to share. So it really came from a place of servant leadership and mentorship and community. And I just started applying to speak at the conferences I wanted to attend anyway, because it got me free registration. It was a great way to network. I was building my brand. It was more from a strategic angle. And I just really liked it. I like being the person that helps facilitate conversations. So I just started doing it, once a year, twice a year for free for probably about the first half, maybe 5-6 years, not even really considering charging. And then a mentor of mine told me, you need to charge. Like, people are doing the same thing that you're doing. They're showing up at the same conferences and they're getting paid. So there's no reason that at this point you shouldn't ask for something. And I started out really small. It was like $500 here, maybe 1,000 there. If it was over 1,000, I was like over the moon. So it really has been a progression. And to be honest, I mean, you can't expect to be making 20K a pop. There's yes, down the road, I know plenty of professional speakers who do charge that rate, and I'm not there yet. But I think it's a ladder that you have to climb, and you have to put in the time and you have to put in the work. And it's so much more than just having a good story. It's a skill, it's a craft, it is a business. So you have to build a pipeline, and you have to market yourself and meet the right people and make sure you're actually charging the right rate. And I will say that the pandemic totally flipped everything on its head. So the rates that I had intended to charge even in 2020, that was not happening. So I had to even take a step back, which was painful, to speak for free in certain situations, because yes, it was good exposure. And I hate that argument at this point in my career, because I don't want to speak for exposure. I want to speak for money. It's my full-time job. It's how I pay the bills. But you also have to just understand where your clients are at. And if their businesses are struggling, they're not going to have the budget. And is there value there? Okay, then I'll speak for a reduced rate. There is positivity in that exposure if it's strategic and it works for you. But it's been really nice going from 2020 into 2021, because from my perspective, I am starting to see that I can get my rate back to where I really want it to be. And I am reassessing what my value is monetarily in the market right now. And it's getting better. It's better. So to any fellow speakers out there, I know that we're all in this together, and I'm happy to see that we're getting booked more for really what we're worth.
I love that. And I like to name drop if it's good, Courtney. I love the name if it's good. Like grandma said, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing. So if it's bad, don't say it. But who was that person that said, Courtney, girl, you need to be charging? Who was that person?
Yeah, I'm happy to name drop. And I drop his name in conversations all the time because he's so awesome. His name is Trevor Louie. And he actually also comes from the hospitality world, but he grew up in the world of food. His family ran restaurants. He's based in Toronto. He's actually the reason why I ever even considered moving there to work. He's like a big brother to me now, but he's now a serial entrepreneur and restaurant opener, and one of the coolest people that I know. His style is on point. He excels in brand development, and he's awesome. And he's just a great person all around.
Got it. What's Trevor's last name? Spell that just so we can get that for the transcript.
Yeah, of course. It's Louie. It's Lui.
Lui. That's what's up. That's so cool, because I think that moment, that light bulb moment, you had a couple. I'm gonna just point out, nonverbal communication. I'm just pointed out. You were like, it's been about a decade. It's like you were like,
yeah,
oh, wow, been about a decade, 2011 to 2021, and then when Trevor said that, like, you'd be getting paid for this. It's like, I've been doing this for just kicks and giggles, but hey, we can get paid. Whenever that happens, like whenever money is inserted in the conversation, things shift.
Yeah.
Right? I got a background in athletics. When you're an amateur, hey, it's all fun and games and all that. Then when you go to college, it's a little different. Like, hey, we paying for you to be here. You need to show up and pro and so on and so forth. So for you getting started in the business, I want to ask you, like, what would you say differently? What would Courtney in 2021 tell Courtney in, you said about 2015, 2016, like, hey, make sure you don't do this because it's going to slow your progress, or make sure you do this and it'll speed it up?
Yeah, a lot comes to mind. So I'll give you the first couple things. One is, don't be afraid of the money. Don't be afraid of the numbers. It's a business transaction, and really doing the work and asking people what they charge is important to understand what's real and what you actually are worth. And I'm still doing that today, with the pandemic making things so confusing. I'm still going to my people and saying, how much are you charging for this kind of thing? Because honestly, I just don't even know at this point, what's normal in the industry. And I don't want to undersell myself, because that doesn't do me any good. So I would say to my younger self, don't be afraid to charge what you're worth. And it was really scary, and it was really hard for me to make that transition from, of course I'll speak, I'm your go-to girl, I'm always at all the conferences and I always do it for free, to all of a sudden have that different conversation and say, I would love to, and this is my speaking fee. And it took guts to do that, because I knew that there was a possibility that they would say no, and you want to do those things. They're things that you love to do, and it is great for your brand exposure and that kind of thing. So that's one piece of advice or that I would do differently if I could tell my younger self. I would also say, and this is advice that I need to continually give myself, is don't wait for opportunities to come to you. Go after it. Find it, do the research, ask for referrals. Oh my gosh, referrals are like the magic juice that just makes everything come to life. So really having a sales strategy and being intentional about the opportunities that you want to book, that is really, really helpful instead of just kind of sitting back, focusing on marketing and expecting them to just kind of come to you and stumble upon you. It's a competitive space, especially right now with the pandemic. Less events are happening. So you have to be aggressive. You have to be assertive and not as passive.
I love that. And with you said something there. It's a competitive space, right? And it's super interesting when you're talking about, asking other speakers like, hey, what do you charge? I still remember I spoke at Purdue University. It was on my oldest daughter's birthday, November 4th. She had just turned 5. So it was 2014 because I had the like 700, students singing happy birthday to her. But I remember the opening keynote was like a legend in the college space, a guy that I'd followed for a long time. And I got a chance to talk to him. And I said, hey, man, I want to ask you about like negotiating. Like, this is how much I got paid to do this. Like, how much did you get paid? Like, I'm just that type of dude. Like,
Yeah.
I'll ask, and I don't care if you, shoot me some BS or whatever. Like, I'll figure it out. But he was like, listen, he said, everybody negotiates. He said, don't let anybody ever trick you into thinking they don't negotiate. Now, they negotiate differently, but everybody negotiates. He was like, I did this event for, I don't know, I think it was like $4,000 or something. And he's like, I did this for $4,000. My rate is 5. He was like, in the college space, that's probably, the most I'm gonna get paid as a non-celebrity. So I'll do this for 4. He was like, how much did they pay you? I was like, oh, they paid me $2,200. They paid me less than you, but it made sense. And he's like, but it's Purdue University, dude. He was like, this is a good deal. He's like, and they do this conference every year. So like he was just giving me game on that. And I thought that, to your point, when you are competitive, and I think this is the difference between the speaking industry and some others, even I can be competitive with you, but we can still share notes.
Yep. Agreed.
Like, yeah, it's like, oh, Courtney's up for that. Or I kind of like it when I know a speaker friend of mine is up for the same thing, because it's like, oh boy, did you get it? Did you get it? It's like, I got it. That's right. You didn't get it, or vice versa. So how do you, I said all that to say, how do you start building those relationships? Like, how do you, if you're new, you're brand new, you're a young puppy in the game, what's the best way to do that? Or how did you do it?
I think it's important to just always be watching for people who inspire you. And frankly, that you just think are good people. I would say that's even more important than, the people who are taking the stage and they are maybe that celebrity status in your eyes, like for me, it's more important that the person that I'm going to try to connect to and bring into my life and my circle and, lean on mutually and let them lean on me. It's that we have shared values. And when you're at networking events. So this, of course, is assuming you're putting yourself out there. So you're going to events, you're connecting with people, even virtually on LinkedIn. But it's important that you really listen to how you feel. And if you have a conversation with someone and you're like, wow, I actually really like this person. And it seems like we are kind of on the same page in terms of our values. And the next step is just to invite them into another conversation with you. So even going back to my mentor, Trevor, we met in a hotel lobby where people were hanging out after the conference ended. And I just approached him and struck up a conversation because I liked the little bow tie that he was wearing. And we just hit it off, and it was super friendly, and it felt easy. It felt easy. And I think that's the most important thing, is that it doesn't feel uncomfortable. You don't feel less than. You're on the same level. You're just people connecting. And those are the people who are going to be the people who actually cheer you on, support you, open doors to other connections they have, and support your journey in a way that's also strategic. So inviting you into their network in the right way. They know who you are, they know your values. They're not going to introduce you to someone who's crappy. They're going to introduce you to the best of the best, because they want to see you succeed and they want to see you shine. So if you're brand new, and if you're, a little baby puppy in the speaking world, look for the people that you admire, but you admire them because they have the same values as you. Not necessarily that they, have made a lot of money or they have a lot of fame, and then don't be afraid to reach out and just ask for advice. That's the best thing you can do, is just ask for advice. Most people are pretty happy to spend 15 minutes with you and just help give you a little bit to push you in the right direction.
That's great. Great advice. And we all are people. I know you've met some, I guess, air quotes, right? Famous people, or, celebrities in the space. Is there somebody that you like really, really, like, you've either admired them from afar, or you've seen them at an event and you weren't able to get to them, that you would like to talk to? Just anybody that comes to mind?
Yeah, so there is a speaker and author, Judy Holler. She also came from the hospitality industry, so it was inspiring to see how far she had built her career when she left working in sales at a hotel, and she decided to build, her entrepreneurship around keynote speaking and authoring a really great book called Fear is My Homeboy. So she was somebody who I could identify with in a professional career path sense, but I also just really liked her style. I thought that she was somebody who walked the walk and talked the talk in terms of really empowering other women. And she actually offered to mentor me. And she was somebody that I was just like, she seemed really busy, and I wasn't sure that I was comfortable asking her directly to like have a conversation or whatever that was. And she ended up actually reaching out to me, and she said, I love what you're doing, and I'd love to help bring you to the next level that you're trying to get to, because I've been there and I'm a couple steps ahead, and I'd like to support you in any way that I can. So if there are opportunities for us to do that too, that's also important, not just asking for mentorship, but also really seeing those people that shine and have potential, that are going to go somewhere because they work hard, they have integrity, and they have something special, and really reaching out to them and offering them your guidance as well. I think it works both ways.
And that was Judy
Holler. Yep.
Holler,
Holler.
like holler, like a holler.
Yeah, like I'm going to holler at you. Yeah. Yes. Yeah,
That's
her company
awesome.
is actually called Holla Productions, but it's Holler.
That's pretty cool. And I'd never heard of her before just now. And that's what another thing I think that's really cool in the speaking space is, like, people are doing really, really dope things. You've
Mhm.
never heard of them because they're in different spaces, and I know you do speaking across different industries. Which industries, like, do you speak in? Like, do you target? And what's your favorite one?
That is a difficult question to answer, because I am finding that I'm speaking for all different types of communities. So I've spoken to universities, but I would not say that that is my number one area. I've spoken mostly to people who work in the events industry. So I've spoken to event professionals, sales professionals, hospitality professionals. I'm starting to gear myself a little bit more toward corporate, because frankly, that's where the money is. So why would you not? And a lot of those people that I like to have in my audience that are really hungry to grow and potentially start their own businesses are also in corporate. So that's where my focus, I think, will be moving forward. And if I had to pick a perfect audience to speak to, it would be a room full of women who want to build their confidence and are interested in really sharpening their brand and taking themselves to the next level of their life. That would be the group that I would want to speak to most.
Got it. And I think that's also interesting too, because and you're taught different things, like kind of where you come from, right? You came from the hospitality, events management space, right?
Hmm.
And different speakers come from, different groups. Like in college, I was not a student leader. I was not involved. I was not in a fraternity. I was like that kid that said, okay, there here's the minimum I can do and graduate. Let's do that.
Yes.
That was my path. That was my path of least resistance. You said that you switched majors. Before I got there, I said, okay, let's see the minimum I can do. Cool, let's do that. Because I just want to have fun. Like that's all I want to do. And but I want to still graduate. So but I did college because that's where I was steered. Like that's what somebody said, hey, you should speak at
Yeah.
colleges because they pay. And then you learn about different industries as you move forward. What would you say? And then I'm gonna ask you about a specific event, but what would you say as far as marketing goes? Like what? And we'll end it on this. Like if I'm trying to market to event professionals or something like that, like what do we do?
That's such a great question. So, being from the events industry, and that's really where 90% of my network is. So, those are my people. They're the community that I've gotten to know over the past decade. The best way to connect with event professionals is by genuinely wanting to build a relationship with them. The industry is a family. It is such a tight-knit community. It's super small. So once you are in and you get involved, especially with professional associations, so like Meeting Professionals International is a group that really helped me launch my career in a lot of different capacities. Getting involved with them and getting to know their leadership and getting to know the people who were leading in the industry was critical. And then really building relationships with them, letting them know, what I'm up to, sharing that information with them, and not being afraid to ask for referrals. Telling them that, I launched my business in the beginning of 2020. It's been a crazy ride. And the best way that you can support me is referring me to somebody else. Not being afraid to have that conversation after you've built a relationship with a person. So if you're trying to connect with event people, get involved in their professional associations, and then genuinely just make an effort to start building those relationships with them.
I love that. I love that. Courtney Stanley, CS Consulting. Appreciate you just taking some time out of your busy schedule. If people want to reach out, what can they do to find you?
So you can learn more about my services, which are speaking, emceeing, coaching, and I'm a podcaster as well. I'll mention that in a second. You can check out my services at courtney-stanley.com. You can also follow me on social media pretty much anywhere at Courtney on Stage. And I do have a podcast called Dare to Interrupt, which is really inspired by open, honest conversations with women who are in the events, hospitality, and business industries.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, Courtney, thanks so much. Everybody, you know how we do. We'll see y'all at the top, not
Thanks,
from the top.
Odell.
God bless.